my life that I face daily in my own spiritual practice, it doesn't really help us that much. It's I know many people, including myself, who know a lot of things that we don't follow. Can you relate to that? Like sometimes you're like, why did I do that? I know that's wrong, but I did it, right? Or sometimes we hear something and we like do it for a day or two or three, and then we forget. So if we can hear in terms of really imbibing this as a consciousness shift, like how could I learn this in a way that it affects the way I see the world, the way I see myself, the way I deal with people, then you're going to have dramatic effect. Otherwise, it's just more things. And I'm sure all of you already know a lot, right? Do you ever feel like I know too much already? Do you ever have that feeling? Like I already know too much and I'm not even doing half, not even half, a quarter, a third of what I'm doing. Um, so, so I think that's important. So let me some of you know me, and some of you don't. I think it's good to know me so you know where I'm coming from. So I began my practice when all of you were in another lifetime. That was 1969. I don't think anybody born before 1969 here? No. One. All right. Okay, we only have one. So everyone but Vina was in another body. Okay. So, we have two. Yvette, we have two. Okay. So when all but two of you were in another body, I began my practice. And it happened through Kirtan and through studying Bhagavad Gita. Most of you, probably all of you, know Bhagavad Gita. And that book was it. That book took me from thinking I was an American 19-year-old student to understanding I was an eternal spirit soul in an American 19-year-old student body. And that completely changed my vision, and that this was not the first body or the last. So from that time, I began practicing and also teaching, because I like to teach, and helping people understand also they're not the body and that there's more to life than meets the eye. So now the idea that the reason we wanted to do this class was two, because the world's kind of messed up now. Maybe you've noticed. Have you noticed it's messed up? Or am I the only one who noticed? Yeah. Things are difficult now. Of course, if you live in America, it's really messed up, as you could imagine. You probably know the news. So, and COVID has created a lot of problems, and a lot of people having difficulty coping with being limited in where they can go and what they can do, being limited in the association of their friends and family. So it's been a really hard time. So we thought, let's do something that would help people better cope. And let's also introduce all of you to the Inner Sanctuary workshop in case you're interested. And when we offer it, you could take it. So that was the idea. So now, so I want to just explain where I'm coming from in my presentation. So, if you read about resilience, basically the concept of resilience is the world throws its stuff at you and you get dirty and smashed and messed up, and then you learn how to bounce back. And that's not my approach. My approach is, I think, the only real approach to dealing with difficulty, and that is how to deal with it so it won't get you down in the first place. Wouldn't that be good? Rather than like you come to me and you say, I'm angry. And I say, okay, just take a deep breath. Let it go. Take a deep breath and do that. Do this for about 30 seconds. And then you do it and you say, oh, I feel better now, right? Okay, great. What got you angry? Why did you get angry? What's causing that? That's the issue, right? So then you go back out calm. And an hour later you come back. I'm angry again. He did the same thing. Okay. So a lot of the strategies that people use are responding after you've been upset or after you misbehaved, said the wrong thing, did the wrong thing, thought the wrong thing. My strategy is how to help you alter your consciousness so you won't be angry, or you'll be angry for like a nanosecond and you can deal with it. I can't say you'll never be angry, but I would say you won't be as angry, you'll be less angry less often, and definitely you'll be able to deal with it. Now, if I could deliver on that, would that be good or would that be good? I mean, yeah. And the price is right, yes? That's a lot to deliver for such a low price. Okay, so that's what I'm going to try to deliver. Sound good? Are you ready? Are you enthusiastic? Yeah, you fired up. Yeah. Okay, let's go. I wish we were all in the same room together. Then I can really get you fired up. I get, stand up and dance. You know, well, I can't imitate Tony Robbins or anything, but
We can't see how fired up you all are. Please show us your cameras.
Show us how fired up you are.
Fired up faces.
Yes. Vina's really fired up. The oldest one is the most fired up. And Yvette, the second oldest, is the most fired up. All these young people, I don't know what happened to you guys. Too much time on your iPhone or something. Okay, let's dig into this. So I want to start off with a foundational, kind of like the foundation of my whole talk. And the foundational point is that all of us have an inner sanctuary. And what do I mean by inner sanctuary? That's a place where we could go and find our strength, our center, where we find that higher self, the compassion, the happiness, the satisfaction. Well, we could just call it higher consciousness. So we've all been there. We've all accessed it before, haven't we? Sometimes you're in a situation and you just act the right way, or you deal with it in the proper way, and you're accessing your higher self or your spiritual consciousness or your clear intelligence. You could call it many things. They're all connected. Your spiritual consciousness, your pure spiritual intelligence, your integrity, inner guidance, what we call super soul, guidance from the super soul. You're accessing that. And when you access it, you're in this sanctuary. You're like protected. You don't do the wrong thing. You don't say the wrong thing. You don't get upset. You don't become aggressive, resentful. You deal with everything peacefully. And that's also where you find your inner satisfaction. So, but here comes the bad news. We also have something which I call the inner hell or inner enemy. I'm writing that down. So, this is the foundational point. We can react to situations by taking shelter of our going to our inner sanctuary, which we're going to try to help you get to and understand more about what it is and how to get there, or going to our inner hell or our inner enemy. And so what happens when you go to your inner hell? That's when you get stressed out. That's where you become unhappy. That's where your resentment lies, your dissatisfaction. That's when things are just not working out and your response is driving you crazy. And we all have done that more often than we would like to. So you can't cope with COVID from your inner hell. You can only cope with it from your inner sanctuary. And in my study of consciousness, I basically would just label like your inner sanctuary. The synonym would be higher consciousness. Your inner hell, your inner enemy, that would be lower consciousness. And there was a man, I forget his name. It was something like David Hawkins, not to be confused with Richard Dawkins, like David Hawkins. And he did a lot of study with kineas. I can't even pronounce it. You know, muscle testing, kinestology. Is that it? Kinesiology. So, and he developed a system where he could understand the levels of consciousness of people, of countries, of organizations, and he mapped out a chart. And I think we could all imagine what is on the bottom of that level, of the lowest levels of consciousness. That's where hatred resides, resentment, anger, envy, jealousy, etc. And then there was a switch in going to the higher levels, and that switch took place with integrity. Integrity means that I'm aligned with my higher self, my spiritual self. I act with spiritual guidance. And so qualities like kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and so forth, which are inherent within us as spiritual beings, because we have divine qualities because we're part of the divine. That's like the best news I think I could offer you. We may not feel divine, but we have divine qualities because that's inherent within us as spiritual beings. So as you go up, and then the highest is love, divine consciousness. That's the highest level of consciousness. So when you're acting from a place of higher consciousness, it's always the best way to act. It's the most functional. It's the best way to cope and deal with everything. And in my personal experience, when you get to that level, there is no coping because nothing bothers you anymore. Wouldn't that be good if nothing bothered you and you're thinking, oh, that's impossible? Well, it's not. And you can let things bother you if you want them to bother you because you may need to solve problems and do something, and injustice should bother us. But we have the control of what we allow to bother us. But when you're in this higher consciousness, you can be on a plane where things don't bother you, or as I said, they don't bother you very long before you take responsibility and then bring yourself back up. Now, one thing we know is that sometimes everything bothers us. Have you been there before? Like, have you had that day when, like, it doesn't matter what happens, it just bothers you? Don't talk to me. Why? Just don't, because I'll say something crazy. So we've all been there. So if you can be in a place where everything bothers you, why couldn't you be in a place where nothing bothers you? It's possible, right? Does that make sense? Anyway, sounds attractive, doesn't it? Let me just tell you a story about myself so you can understand, because it sounds hard to believe that, well, nothing will bother you. Okay, so I'll tell you a story. Many of you know, and some of you have taken my forgiveness course. And if you haven't taken it, we can give you the link. Someone has a link. I think Jai Radha has a link. And you can take this course. And this course did wonders for me. And one of the things it helped me realize was I do not have time to hate somebody. I don't know about you. Do you have time to hate somebody? Is that on your to-do list for tomorrow? Could you make time for that? I don't have time to resent somebody. Any of you have time in your schedule? You're probably pretty busy. Do you have time to fit in to resent somebody? I don't think so. Another realization is I don't have the energy to hate somebody. I don't have the energy to resent somebody. Wouldn't it be nice to have more energy? I mean, we have a lot of things to do every day, don't we? So wouldn't it be nice to have more energy? So after I did this forgiveness process on myself, and I did it with other people, and it helped me by doing it with other people, I came to this point when someone would do something to me that my friends would say, why aren't you upset? This person has cheated you or lied or whatever. This person's criticizing you on the internet. Why aren't you upset? And I would think, I've been there, done that. It is so much better to be forgiving. I just don't have the energy. I don't have the inclination. I don't have the time. I don't have the desire. This is my personal experience. I'm not saying that I'm like, I came from another planet to help all you earthlings, because you're so messed up and I'm so better than you. I am like you. But I learned this through my spiritual practice. through forgiving. So when you get to this higher consciousness, you don't want to go down because you've experienced that higher is better. And down is kind of not, that inner hell. I don't want to go there. So I lived in that inner hell of resentment for 18 years. Can any of you relate to that? Maybe some of you are outdoing me with more than 18 years. And when I got out of there to higher consciousness, there was no question I was going to go back down. So that's why I'm saying if you can elevate yourself, once you get there, you never want to go back down. So this person is harassing you, blaspheming you, making up lies about you, stealing money from you, which all happened to me at the same time from 3 people last year. It was insane. I don't know what was going on with the stars. It happened. 3 people were attacking me. And I was watching it all happen. And I don't want to brag. I just want to say that this is possible. I was watching this happen. Some person cheated me, was lying to me, cheating me out of money. Someone was making up stories about me. And 2 other people were making up stories about me. It was like horrible. And all I felt for them was I feel sorry for them, that they're in this state of consciousness where they feel they need to do that. I actually didn't feel any resentment. It was because of all the work I did, and specifically because I didn't want to lower myself, because I knew what it was like to live down there, and it was so much better to live up there. And that's why I say you can come to this point where it's not like you have to go through a forgiveness process. There won't be anyone to forgive. You won't have to go through a tolerance process or an anger detox or anything, where you can actually come to a point where you are living in your inner sanctuary and you're protected. And I definitely felt when this was happening, it was happening last fall. When this was happening, I definitely felt I had this like inner sanctuary that I could just go, and I was like in a bubble. So, would you like to know how to get there? Did that appetizer make you hungry? Yeah, I think it did. Okay. So, let's see how far we can go today with the time we have. Okay. So, now, of course, the next question is, well, who determines whether you go to your inner hell or your inner sanctuary? Who can tell me the answer for this very difficult question to answer? Who determines where you go? What is the cause for you going to your inner sanctuary or going to your inner hell? Is it your mother when she gets upset with you? Is it your boss? Is it when there's too much traffic in London? Is it COVID? Who's the cause? You all know the answer. Number 1 is the cause, ourself. Numero uno. We're the cause of our own problem, right? And so what's beautiful about this is if I cause my problems, I can cause solutions. Yes or yes? That's the beauty of it, right? If I'm the one who messed up, then I'm the one who can correct it. And we all can do better. That's the beauty of it. If I messed it up, I can correct it. That's a good one to write down. Good mantra, Make a t-shirt out of that one. If I messed it up, I can correct it. Yeah. Okay. So, I would like to help you create an inner sanctuary default. That's the place you just go naturally. It's just where you go. And if you work the principles, you'll be able to get there, believe it or not. So here's the first principle of how to find your inner sanctuary, and it's this, and you probably want to write this down. I'll say it a few times. We will never find our inner sanctuary while we are still trying to find solutions by adjusting things external to ourselves. I'll read that again slowly. We will never find our inner sanctuary while we are still trying to find solutions by adjusting things external to ourselves. I think you understand that. You could write it in your own words. If I adjust something outside of me, that will fix something inside of me. Sorry for the bad news, but that is not the ultimate solution. It may work temporarily, but the fix is much deeper. And I personally feel like this is so deeply rooted in us, because if you actually think about it, look at your education. What was your education for? It was training you to get a job. Okay, nothing wrong with that. It wasn't training you to become self-realized. You didn't learn these things in school, I don't think. I didn't learn them. So when you go to school, there's a paradigm, unspoken paradigm, we all know this, that if I get a good job, I'll be happy. Because a good job means security. It means money. If I have money, then I can get a little bigger house than the one who didn't get the degree, right? I can get a little bigger car. I can get a little better this, better that. So there's this concept that's programmed into us. And we all know this. That's why we're here on the spiritual path. We know this. But I just want to say it's programmed deeper in than we think. Because how many times have you ever thought, if I just had blank, then I would be happy, I wouldn't be angry, I would be satisfied. If so-and-so were just not like this, but were like that, then everything would be okay. How many times have you thought that, right? And it's really good. You can make a note after this class. Write down your, if I just had, or if it just were like this, write those down and then read, because it shows you what you're thinking. You just read it back and say, I'm actually thinking like this. I'm actually believing, right? And it's a lie. I can guarantee you it's a lie. I'm not saying if you had something, you wouldn't be better off. But to think that's going to solve your problems and that's really going to make you happy, if it's, if you're living on the street, yeah, if I just had a house, I'd be happy. Of course. If you're starving, if I just had food, then I'd be happy. Yeah. But once you have a house, once you have food, once you have basic necessities, then all the, if I were just successful like him, I would be happy. That thought will drive you crazy. That thought could give you cancer. I believe that thought could give you cancer, because if you never become successful like him, you're going to go crazy, stressed out. You'll never be happy. You'll always be stressed because he's more successful. And that's putting me in anxiety. Can you relate to that? And it's so important to understand this, because then you can work on yourself instead of working on all the situations outside of yourself that you think are going to change the inside of yourself. They don't change it. They only stimulate it, or they only cause you to forget what's going on outside. You ever have a good time? Go to a movie. It's great. You'll totally forget all your troubles. But unfortunately, when you get out of the movie theater, guess what? Their troubles are waiting for you. Oh, welcome out of the theater. Here. Your anxieties were on hold. Here, I just want to hand them back to you again. Isn't it? So a lot of what we do and we call happiness is just to numb the pain, so I don't have to think about it. That in European countries, they're much more than America. They're into drinking alcohol, and alcohol is a great way to forget your problems, isn't it? I mean, I don't recommend it. I recommend chanting, but we understand what we call happiness is also is often a numbing of problems. So we have to start here. And I want to explain why, because it gets interesting when you start explaining it. So let's look at the world, and let's look at all the things we don't like that we absolutely cannot change. Okay, I'll have some questions for you. Question number 1, can you change the weather? Well, you can go inside and put on the heat. But outside, can you change the weather? No. Can you change what goes on in Parliament? Well, if you're a member of Parliament. But if you're not, can you really do much? Do you have any say in what wars your country fights? Do you have any say in what happens in the stock market? Do you have any say what happens with the price of petrol? What your prime minister does? And like, just go down the list and you start to realize there's a lot of things we would like to change, isn't it? That are actually causing us anxiety that we cannot change when you think about it. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. You don't have to answer because it's embarrassing, but I know the answer is yes. Is there someone in the world you would like to change? Anjani is saying, way more than one. I've got a whole list, and they all live in my house. And the rest of them live where I work or my school. Yeah. So, okay, we all have people we like to change, right? And they keep acting the way they've always acted, which is driving us crazy, and we wish we could change them, but we can't. And the more we hope to change them, the more we get frustrated, isn't it? And it causes anxiety, doesn't it? Yes? Totally. So, if we're going to have peace and happiness, or if if you base your peace and happiness on trying to control things outside of you, then you have to stop and think, well, how many things do I actually have control of? And how many things that I control can I control tomorrow? And so if you live that way, then basically you're constructing, you're going to construct your own nightmare, because we can't do that. Now, here's where it gets interesting, so please pay attention. I think it's obvious we're limited in how we can shape the external environment, but we have total control of the internal environment, right? So I can control, Anjani, you could control your internal environment in a way that all those people that you want to change that will never change don't bother you. You have control. You can do that. Is that good? Like, we have been given independence to be able to change how we perceive something, change what's going on in the internal world. And doesn't it make sense that, like, why would I be out there trying to change so many things externally when there's so few that I can change? Wouldn't it be smarter to be working on the internal? And isn't it true that most of us would like to change other people, but we don't really work so much on changing ourselves? Isn't that true? And it doesn't make sense, because we're the ones we can actually change. So this is the good news. You may want to write that down, because that's really good news. The vast majority of things that determine our life experience. What determines our life experience? The vast majority of them are the internal. What you believe, what your motivations are, what your attitudes are, what your stories are about what's happening, what your goals are. Those are the things that actually affect your experience of what's going on outside of you. Isn't that interesting? So by adjusting your beliefs, your attitudes, your stories, etc., the experience of what's going on can change in a way that it doesn't disturb you. So what this means is we create our own reality, because the way I see the world is my personal reality, right? So you may say, oh, this is bad. And I say, well, for me, it's not bad. That's my inner reality that I've created. And I can do that. So you and I create our own inner reality. Now, here's the problem, and I think you've already realized it. We allow things to disturb us. We allow ourselves to react to situations in a way that works against us. Sometimes we react in ways that depress us. In the last class, the last workshop we gave, we talked about this this horrible situation in which we've all been in, where we're trying to control something we absolutely cannot control. Have you ever been in that situation? I mean, if that's not a synonym for hell, I don't know what is. You have absolutely no control of a situation, and you're desperately trying to control it. Have you ever done that? Well, it's a synonym for hell. It's a synonym for stupid. Maybe a synonym for crazy. But we've all done it because we so desperately look to the outside world to make ourselves happy and peaceful rather than defaulting to the inside world by adjusting. The only thing we can really adjust is our inner reality, which then adjusts how we see things. You know, I have a funny story. Somehow or other, I've been gifted with a lot of tolerance. I don't think it was something that I developed from my spiritual practice as much as I was born with it. And my wife is very sensitive, right? So sometimes we're in a situation where she's bothered by something, and she'll ask me, does that bother you? And I'll say no. And she'll say, why doesn't that bother you? It should bother you. What's wrong with you? Because she's so bothered by it, it's like it bothers her that I'm not bothered by it. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that, right? But we don't want to be in that situation where, you know, we want everybody to be bothered by what we're bothered by. That's unfortunate, you know. So anyway, okay. So let's talk a little bit about happiness. We talked a little bit about dealing with problems, and we're kind of understanding that it's the level of our consciousness that's the problem, not the actual problem. And I want to talk more about this. So when I was about 18, that was 1968, for all of those of you who were so unfortunate not to be a hippie, and you missed the 60s. I know some of you are like, I wish I was a hippie. You probably were. You probably just died young and you were probably there. So, you know, that's why you want to be one, because you were one. So, you know, like, I'm convinced of that because I see some people, I'm like, oh my God, that person definitely lived in Haight-Ashbury, you know, in 1965. Just like by the way they dress and think. So, so as you probably know, in that culture, the use of drugs was very common. It was not like, it was just normal. Marijuana, hashish, psilocybin, mescaline, LSD, it was just so, you know, everybody was doing it. It's not like, what's wrong with you? Why you're doing it? No, it's like, what's wrong with you? Why you're not doing it? That was the culture. So strangely enough, the use of maybe it's not strange. I don't know. Maybe yeah. Okay, I'll take that statement back. Many people got on the spiritual journey after taking those drugs. Did you know that? It gave them experiences that they're not physical beings and some godlike experiences. So I had an experience once in which I was on, I think it was mescaline, and I don't know how it works on the brain chemistry. I think it releases all the happy hormones like a dam. Like every happy hormone you have gets released all at once. And I was like feeling so happy. I was like, I haven't been this happy in a long time. And the whole time I was thinking, okay, that's it. I'm finished with drugs. There's got to be a way to get this without drugs. There has to be. And I'm sure all of you have had an experience like that, isn't it? After you've tried everything, you tried to become famous, that didn't work. Or you became famous and that didn't work. You tried to become rich, it didn't work. You became rich, it didn't work. You know, you got the new this. And, you know, it's like after like 3 weeks, it's like, nah, it's not so great. You know, we've all had those experiences. So having had those experiences and having this drug experience, I thought, there has to be a way. So it was a very strong intuition that the external is not going to, I had the external. I had whatever I needed, whatever I wanted, I had it. I was I was quite spoiled, right? So I had it, and then that was my search. And then what happened? Kirtan. I found Kirtan. And then everything changed. I had that same experience, but there was no drug. I had the ecstasy without the drug. And I couldn't believe it because I never had an ecstatic experience like that without it being stimulated either by a drug or sex or music or a sport or a movie or something needed to stimulate it. And now I was in Kirtan and I was getting the same thing. And that was like, oh, this is proof that it's not coming from the external. So I was given that experience of what I was looking for. And that solidified my, you could say, inner sanctuary, that it's in there because I experienced it. And it was very heavy experience. Now, you have all done Kirtan, I think, and you might be saying, oh, I didn't get that experience. I go, well, I was doing it like 8 hours a day, like 7 days a week. I was doing a lot of it. It was intense. I was there, and this ecstasy was coming all the time, and it was better than anything that I got from anything I did. And so that was confirming, okay, there is this inner sanctuary. So I had these two experiences with forgiveness and being protected from all the stuff people throw at me, and then the inner happiness experience I had. So it was very, we're going to go the lecture a little longer because I want to cover some more points. So now another thing that helps us understand about how the inner environment is helping us perceive the external environment is, you've been there, something has happened, and you reacted to it in one way, and the person next to you reacted in a different way, the person next to them reacted in a different way, and sometimes there's 10 people with 10 reactions to the same thing. At least 2 reactions, 2 different, at least. Yes, you've seen that? Like, somebody is not upset, somebody's angry, somebody wants to do something to solve the problem, somebody wants to kill somebody, someone wants to overthrow the government, different reactions. That makes sense? You've seen that? So it's always good to know when you're reacting to a situation, you think from your subjective perspective, this is the reaction, this is the reality, and it's not, because not everyone's going to react like you. 100% guaranteed. That internal world, your internal subjective world, is now coming out, and you're putting your story on what's happening, and that story is coming back to you, and you think that story is real. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Think of some situation where you reacted in not a good way. Maybe you became angry or jealous, envious, resentful, whatever. And I have a question for you. You had put a meaning on that, and that meaning had caused you to become upset. Yes? That makes sense? So here's the question. Could that event have meant something else? Could the meaning have been different? And of course the answer is yes. Could that mean something else? So then I ask you, think of that event that upset you. And now here's the question. What else could it mean? Start thinking. What else could it have meant? Maybe it could have meant that person who said that had a bad day, or their wife died that day. I don't know. Or they got caught in traffic, or they had a bad week, a bad month, a bad year, a bad life, a bad 100 lives. It could have meant so many things, right? Does that make sense? So it shows us that our subjective world, to us, tells us this is the reality, when it's just the reality of a filter we're seeing through. And because as soon as we ask the question, could it mean anything else, we realize there is another way to look at this. There is a better way. There is a higher way. And so my whole point is, your inner sanctuary is the highest possible way you could look at a situation. And when you look at it from the highest spiritual level, you're not going to get upset. You're not going to get angry, frustrated, depressed, etc., stressed. You're going to be stable. You're going to be peaceful. You're going to be able to deal with it with compassion. Now, I want to give you an example of this because this is such a good example. And it's not my example, so I can't claim credit for it. But I think it's a beautiful example. All of us are looking at a brick house, right? Well, no, let's say two of us are looking at a brick house. And one of us is getting very depressed looking at the brick house. And one of us is feeling very good looking at the brick house. Why? Are we disagreeing that these are brown bricks? No. Are we disagreeing on the chemical composition of the bricks? No, we totally agree. This is a brick house. It is this shade of brick, and bricks are chemically composed of these elements. And bricks are made in this, bricks come from earth, they're fired. We totally agree on bricks. But why are we seeing the house differently if we agree on bricks? Should I explain? You want to learn? This is really good. This is worth the paying price that you paid for. You're paying your time, so it's worth your time. So when I was young, and it's true, my grandmother had big bowls of candy. And so when my sister and I would go to her house, those bowls were just out. And our, grandmothers, they don't discipline you. So, grandmothers, you just do anything you want there. So we'd eat all the candy we wanted and terrorize the house and do whatever we wanted. So I see the brick house, and it just reminds me of when I was at my grandmother's house, feeling like amazing. Candy and having fun. So I see the brick house. I feel all warm and fuzzy when I see brick houses. But let's say one of you went to a school and it was the same bricks, that your school was made of bricks. Actually, my school was made of bricks. Yeah. Well, your elementary, let's say your elementary school, when you're 5, 6 years old, it's made of bricks. And you had this horrible teacher. And anytime you did little something wrong, this teacher would shame you in front of the class. You are stupid. You are this, you are that. And it was happening like every other day for the whole time you were in grammar school, for like 5 years or 6 years. And it just destroyed you. So when you see that brick building, how do you feel? You feel horrible, right? Isn't that an interesting example? We're looking at the same thing, but there's a completely different emotional experience because of the filters we're looking through, because of past experience, because of how we're understanding it, right? Okay, it gets better. Don't go anywhere. Okay. Now, as we said, the good news is we have a choice to see any situation through a different filter. Even that situation where you were shamed from the age of 5 to 10, you can change that filter. Is that good news? You can actually change that filter. That's good news. And you're like, how do I do it? How do I do it? Well, it may take more than the next 10 minutes we have. But when we do the full course, we can get into it. But I'm going to give you a strategy. And this is an amazing strategy. And I think maybe many of you are not aware of this. And some of you may get it right away and apply it right away. And this maybe is all you need. Okay. And I call this, you can write this down, see through the eyes of compassion, acceptance, and service. See through the eyes of compassion, acceptance, and service. Okay, I have to tell you a story. These are the 3 biggies: compassion, acceptance, service. If you start seeing the world this way, you will be seeing a different world. So, in my work in teaching forgiveness, I think it was probably now maybe, when did I start? So probably like 14, 15 years ago, I started teaching it. And when you teach, you learn a lot because you see what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of times as a teacher, when you're teaching a course, you want to isolate the essence of like, what are the most important things? And what I found is that the most important element in forgiving was compassion. And if I could get the students to be compassionate towards the person that was abusing them, it would neutralize all their resentment, like some kind of magic drug that just neutralizes everything negative. It was amazing. And then I read a quote, and the quote said, what it said, compassion is the antitoxin of the soul. This author named Eric Hoffer, I think he's an American author. Compassion is the antitoxin of the soul. Wow. And I'm going to be able to explain this a little more, and I think you're going to get it. So, I think the best way we can understand this is to apply this principle to ourselves. Okay. So I have a question, and I already know the answer. Have you ever done something stupid? Well, the answer is yes, because even Albert Einstein has done something stupid before, and maybe more than once. Have you ever done something inappropriate? Like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Have you ever done it? Yes. Even the most sophisticated people sometimes will do that. Have you ever been harsh on somebody? Of course. Have you ever mistreated somebody? You regretted it, right? Yes. Have you ever done something you feel guilty about? Or worse, shameful about? Like you don't even want to think about it because it was so bad. I hope not, but for some of us, the answer is yes. Okay. Now, a lot of us carry this with us right to this day. Like I can't even think about such and such a thing because it was so bad. Hold on a second. A little more light. So I don't want to think about it because it was so bad. How do we deal with that? Let's apply compassion. Let's use this as an example. Like I did something I'm really ashamed that I'd done. I wish I'd never done it. Let's use compassion. If I apply compassion to myself, I will think, okay, you were young. You really didn't realize what you were doing. You didn't have the life experience to have the perspective to prevent yourself. You didn't mean to do it, and you have never done it again. So what have I just done to myself? I've applied acceptance, I've applied compassion, and service. And what's the service? The service is to neutralize all the guilt and shame by applying the compassion and the acceptance. Have any of you ever done this with yourself? Applied compassion on yourself and seen how it heals you? But if you haven't, you should do it, because compassion and acceptance, I'm saying compassion and acceptance are the great healers. And you might say, well, how is it a healer? Just do it on yourself. You will heal yourself, and you will realize how great a healer it is, right? Maybe you grew up and your mother was saying, oh, you're so this and so that, and you heard that all your life. So when you're an adult, that script is going through your head. Oh, I'm so bad. I'm so bad. You ever hear someone say that? Everything they do, they go, well, I'm so bad. It never comes out right, or I'm so stupid. I'm so this or that. That's probably because they heard that growing up. So if you apply compassion on that, compassion says, well, you're trying your best. You're just a human. You can do better, and we will do better. And I just have to accept that I did make those mistakes. And I know my mother wasn't so happy, but I can be better, and I will be better. And I just have to be, kind on myself instead of beat myself up. Have you ever beat yourself up? Raise your hand if you've beaten yourself up before. Okay, that means you're all normal. Those who haven't beaten themselves up, something is definitely wrong with you. No question. Okay, so if we're beating ourselves up, as soon as we self-compassion, it neutralizes that tendency to beat ourselves up. Self-acceptance, right? So now, if that's true, and people are throwing garbage on you, if you give them compassion, self-acceptance, and service, it will neutralize your ill feelings towards them, because you'll understand he's struggling, he's just a human, he's learning, etc., etc. Does that make sense? Compassion is the great neutralizer. So when you live in your inner sanctuary, you come at the world from compassion. You come at the world from more acceptance. And did you know that compassion is universally considered the topmost spiritual quality? Like the Dalai Lama said, my religion is compassion, or my religion is love. It's accepted universally. In the Bhakti tradition, it's considered the greatest quality of the devotee, of the bhakta, compassion. In my experiences, when you think about how you could apply compassion to an event, apply acceptance to an event, apply service to the people in that event that caused you difficulty, and see if that couldn't help you neutralize the negativity. Just take that with you. We don't have time. Take that with you. Okay, then there's one last thing I want to say. And this is so obvious that nobody gets it. You ever have that experience? Something so obvious, nobody got it? Yeah. I mean, maybe you get it. It was so obvious that I didn't get it. Let me tell you a story. The teacher tells the students, I want you to bring 1 potato to class for every person you hate, and I want you to put their name on it. So if you hate 10 people, 10 potatoes each with their name. So all the students bring their potatoes and said, bring it in a bag. And then she said, okay, now today's Monday, well, Tuesday, today's Tuesday. So you have to carry this bag with you for the next week till Friday. And you have to carry it with you 24/7. So in the shower, when you're doing sports, in all your classes and so forth. And so they're complaining, it's too heavy. My potatoes smell. I went in the shower. Now they're all smelly, and, I have to sleep with them. And they're all complaining. And the teacher says, no, you have to carry them. I have to teach you a lesson. So, and the students who hated a lot of people had pretty heavy bags, right? And it's like, you know what it's like when you carry something? It keeps getting heavier, right? So Friday came, they dropped their bags. It was like, wow, what a relief. This was hell. And the teacher said, this is exactly what it's like when you hate somebody. You carry that hatred with you everywhere you go. They got the lesson. It was clear. And this is a very powerful lesson, because I'm sure you all believe in karma, but you may not have understood how karma works on this level. On this level, as soon as I hate somebody, I suffer. As soon as I show compassion to someone, I feel that compassion. My inner sanctuary is my acceptance and compassion, because when I give it, I experience it. My inner hell, my inner enemy, is my resentment, is my anger, is my prejudice, my judgment, because when I give it, I feel it, I experience it. You cannot give something and not experience it. Yes or yes? That's the ultimate, to me, that's like the ultimate subtlety of karma. You cannot give something without getting it back, right? So when you give hatred, you get it back. So so you understand your inner sanctuary is that place from which compassion comes, understanding, empathy, acceptance, that place of service. It's no longer about me, it's about helping others. That's where you find the highest peace, highest satisfaction. I heard one person say something that really, really struck me. He said, there is no experience in this world that compares to service. You can't get that experience from anything else. No matter whatever you try to possess for yourself, it will never give you the same emotional experience as you get from serving another person. True or true? How do you feel when you serve? You can't help but feel good, because when you come from higher consciousness, you get to experience higher consciousness. When you come from lower I hate that guy, he's a stupid this or that. Then that's how you feel. You get to experience that. So, yes. All right, I said there was one last thing, but there's definitely one more last thing. And I know I'm going longer than we intended, but I think it's worth it. It's a big topic. I can't cover it in 45 minutes. Have you ever said to someone, "You make me angry"? Somebody said something to me, or you told your friend, "That guy makes me really angry." Or you said worse things. I won't use the language you may have used, but have you ever said something not so nice about someone? So let's analyze it. You're saying the behavior of this person is responsible for how I feel. That's what, if you say this person makes me angry, it means their behavior is responsible for how I feel. Now, I have a question for you. Would you bet all the money you had in the bank that that's true? That that person's behavior is responsible for how you feel? Would you take all the money and think, I bet this is true, absolutely true, I will bet you? I don't think you would, because you know it's not. Because nobody is responsible for how you feel except you. Although it doesn't seem like that. It really seems like he is responsible. So one of the things we do is we try to justify our ill behavior by looking for a scapegoat. Well, you know, if it wasn't like this, I wouldn't have done it. So you're going back into your inner hell, your inner enemy when you do that. But when you realize, no, I'm responsible for my emotions no matter what happens, then, oh, okay. So now things are going to change. You're not going to be a big baby anymore. You can't get away with being a big baby and telling yourself, that guy's the big baby, not me. You can't do that anymore because now you've confronted the reality that you're responsible for how you feel. That's your inner sanctuary when you take responsibility for your feelings. Isn't it? Okay, you know, Jesus on the cross, right? He's being crucified. So what did he say? If I get off this cross, you're all dead. I'm going to smash you. And he didn't say that. He said, God, please forgive them for what they've done. Why did he say that? Well, I can explain it. But first, I have to ask you a question. I'm looking at the ant on my computer screen. Very interesting. We have red ants here. They're not fun. So, when you squeeze an orange, what comes out of the orange? Three guesses. Okay, you got it right. Orange juice. Okay, why does orange juice come out of the orange? Three guesses. Why not strawberry juice when you squeeze an orange? Why not pina colada when you squeeze an orange? Well, because that's what's inside an orange. It's orange juice inside. When you squeeze it, that's what comes out. That's what comes out. So, third question. When you are squeezed, what comes out of you? I ask these questions to kids, and they always say, blood. That's the kids' answer to this question. Blood comes out of me. Yeah. So Jesus was squeezed. So what came out of him? Compassion. Right? I have to tell you my favorite story. You want to hear my favorite? I have two favorite stories, and then we'll end and we'll take some questions. These stories. Stories are so powerful, and these stories can change your life, isn't it? And that's what I'm trying to help you do, is change your life. So first is the yogi and the scorpion. And some of you have heard this story, but I want to tell it in a way that maybe it'll have more impact on you. So in India, it rains 4 months a year. And so there's all these puddles, ponds, where there's normally just roads. So this yogi, he's walking through a pond, you know, just like knee high or lower, and he sees a scorpion. And scorpions are land animals, and the scorpion will drown in the water. So he picks up the scorpion. And, you know, he must have known that scorpions bite. But anyway, he picked up the scorpion, and the scorpion bit him. And, you know, as soon as the scorpion bit him, he just threw the scorpion. But he threw the scorpion ahead of him. And there was a man watching him, and the man was just kind of curious. Why did this yogi pick up a scorpion? Didn't he know the scorpion would bite him? But what was more amazing, he picked up the scorpion the second time. And guess what the scorpion did? You'll never guess what the scorpion did. The scorpion said, "Thank you, yogi. You are so kind. I will not bite you." No, he didn't say that. The scorpion said, "Bah!" And he bit him again, and then he threw it. And this happened about 3 times. And finally, he was able to throw the scorpion onto the land. And this man was watching, and he's like, couldn't figure this out. So he had to go up to the yogi and said, what's going on here? I don't understand. Why did you do that? And he said, actually, when the scorpion bit my hand the first time, I got a realization. And this is such a beautiful realization. If you remember this story, it can help you tremendously. He said, you know, I was trying to help the scorpion, but it's the scorpion's nature to bite. And even though you try to help the scorpion, what's he going to do? It's his nature to bite. So that's what he's going to do, right? So then I thought, well, it's my nature to help, because that's, yogi or sadhu, that's what they do. They're compassionate. Their nature is to help. So he thought, well, if the scorpion won't give up his nature to bite when I'm trying to help him, then why should I give up my nature to be kind when he's biting me? Isn't that a beautiful story? Now, there's a lot of scorpions out there. You meet them every day, right? Have you met those scorpions on the street, in your office? Some of them live in your house, don't they? Sometimes, yeah. Are you getting bitten all the time? Of course we are, right? Now, you're all trying to be spiritual. What's the proof that you're spiritual? Oh, I read Bhagavad Gita. That means I'm spiritual. Or I go to Kirtan. I'm spiritual. No, I have an Om t-shirt. That definitely means I'm spiritual. No. When someone bites you and you can be compassionate, yeah, then you're spiritual. Then you're in your sanctuary. Then you're in your inner sanctuary. When someone bites you and you attack, you've gone into your inner hell. And that's where you're responding from that lower level. Now, I have another story, which may even be better. Can I tell you? We're going over time, but it's okay. I'm creating a new schedule, which I'm famous for doing. But I like to, like to go as far as I think I need to go. This story is amazing. It's about a very, very poor woman who has a little bit of land and grows a few vegetables, and that's how she maintains herself. And she lives in a shack, and she has children that need medical help. And it's just so many things she needs, but she doesn't have any money. And one day she's farming, and she finds a precious stone while she's weeding her farm. And this stone is very valuable. And this stone can completely change her life because it's worth so much. Her kids can go to better school. They can get medical attention. She can get medical attention. She can afford to build a proper house. She doesn't even have to work anymore, right? So she has a little bag. She's carrying this bag with her out to the field. It's got some bread in it. And she puts the stone into the bag. And about 5 minutes later, this poor man walks by. And he sees the bread. And he asks her, is it possible I could have a little bread? And she says, sure. So she opens the bag, pulls out the bread, and he sees that stone in there. So she gives him like half her loaf. And then he says something which you would have never imagined. He said, can I have that stone? To which he said, picked up a stick, ran after him and beat him. Get that! Yeah. No, she didn't do that, which would have been a normal reaction, right? She said, of course you can have it. And she pulled the stone and she gave it to him. And you're thinking, what a stupid woman. Why did you do? No. Just wait. She pulled the stone, gave it to him. And the next day he came back and gave her the stone back and said something she couldn't believe. She said, I'm giving you back this stone and I want to ask from you something more valuable than this stone. And she was astonished because she doesn't have anything valuable. She said, I don't understand. I don't have anything of value that I can give you. And he said, yes, you do. He said, I want from you whatever it is in your sanctuary, in your consciousness, that enabled you to so easily give me that stone. That's what I want from you. So, is that a beautiful story? Um, I just want to end with something that I think you realize, and we kind of began talking about this, but something more specific. What I see from all the work that I've done on myself and all the work I've done teaching, I've seen the way the world has come to we've been programmed to think we can buy happiness. We don't have to change our consciousness to be happy. We can just buy it, just get the new whatever, isn't it? That we'll buy something and that will change our consciousness. When in fact, we all know it's only by raising our consciousness that we'll be happy. Because if you have everything, but you're a person full of hatred, you won't be happy. There's no question you'll be happy. And if you have very little, but you're Mother Teresa, you'll be happy. Or you're a yogi, a sadhu, you have very little, you'll be happy because you live in your inner sanctuary. So there's all these people living in their inner hell, going shopping, doing this, doing that, trying to be happy, doing everything except finding their inner sanctuary. Isn't it a fact? And that's the big illusion of material culture. Instead of thinking, if I become a better person, I'll be happy, they're thinking, if I buy a bigger house, I'll be happy. And it's so sad because that's where the world is going. So thank you all for listening. And I think now we should take questions. If you have questions, I'd be happy to take your questions. And if you want to ask a question, you can either ask it in the chat, or maybe you already have, or you can raise your hand and we can let you speak your question. Ananda, do we have questions in the chat?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
If you wanna ask a question, just unmute yourself and start speaking.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. And
Hiya.
okay, Ashley.
Can I ask a question? When
Yes,
you were
Ashley.
talking about, saying about your inner self and how you respond to problems, you have control over that. How does that sit with, for example, during COVID, I haven't seen my niece for many months and I miss her and I love her. So that isn't something that I can control my feelings for her, or perhaps I could control those feelings for her, but I don't want to. I don't want to stop loving her so that
Yeah.
I can protect myself from these feelings of hurt. So I get it for material things, but I don't get it for love, for people that you actually love.
Right. Okay, that's a good question. You wouldn't change your feelings for her, but you would change the feelings that you have about not being with her right now.
Oh, I see.
Because
So
that's what's causing you. Your feelings of love for her are not the problem. The problem is that you're having difficulty not being with her.
yeah.
So that I would say for you, after having heard this class, just ask yourself the question, how could I deal with that? We can all ask ourselves these questions. Okay, COVID has created this situation, so I'm feeling a certain way because I'm seeing it a certain way. I didn't have time to talk so much about stories, but when we were talking about the brick wall, it's just a story that accompanies. So could I have a story? Okay, my story is that I miss her, which is nothing wrong with that story as long as you can drive over and see her. But now you can't. So now that story is causing you anxiety. So then, that question, what else could this mean? What other story could I have? And let me give you an example. In our forgiveness course, the reason that people come to the course is because they have a story that this person hurt me. That's their story. And they are hurt because that's their story. And it's not that the person didn't hurt them, but they don't have another way to respond to it. So we help them rewrite the story. So it doesn't mean that the hurt wasn't there, but the way they're dealing with the hurt, maybe they understand why that person hurt them. Maybe there was something they did first to hurt them. Maybe there's a lesson that they need to learn. So they rewrite the story. And so when they come out of the workshop, they have a story which no longer supports resentment. It supports forgiveness. So that's the idea. So to find your inner sanctuary sometimes means, okay, I need a new story. And I'm glad you asked this question because there's a deeper aspect to this question. A lot of us have stories from childhood that are not applicable to adulthood. And sometimes when we're in difficult situations, we respond from the childhood trauma, like that and sometimes you'll hear, like someone will come to me, I counsel, and I hear them, and it's not the adult that's speaking to me, it's the 7-year-old child that's speaking to me.
Mm,
And that story is still lingering on today.
mm,
There's still that 7-year-old child. And because they coped with a trauma at 7 years old, the only way a 7-year-old could cope with it. But now as an adult, it doesn't work, but they haven't
mm,
changed.
mm.
So when situations change, we have to change the coping mechanism to what's appropriate. So your question leads into a like a an epidemic of a problem of people dealing from a position of trauma that they had when they were young, and they're dealing with it as adults. So they're actually coming from the 7-year-old girl or boy or
Mm.
whatever, rather than the 35-year-old man or woman now that can actually deal with it.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, we obviously gone on to a slightly different tracks on that from the childhood thing. Um, but getting back to yes, there's physical boundaries of why I can't see her, but on a practical level, so this is what I'm interested in, is like practically, how
Yes.
can I change myself to s- s- feeling grief for her because I haven't seen her so long, I haven't held her, I haven't smelt her,
Right.
I haven't
Hmm.
all these things are making me quite emotional. So, to try and rewrite my story or to reframe or look at the house and look at the house differently, the brick house in a different way.
Hmm.
I mean, all I've really
Okay.
got in
I
practical
can give
terms
you,
is,
yeah, I can give you something,
go on then.
or maybe more than one thing. Um, this is a challenge of the principle of accepting what I can't change at this
Wow.
moment.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's a lesson you need to learn, and this is a way to practice it.
Yeah.
And because when you come to a level of acceptance, then you can deal with this because you
Yeah.
you realize it's not that you won't miss it, but this level of acceptance, it upgrades the emotional response. Well, there's nothing I can do. I've accepted that, and I need to learn this lesson in all aspects of my life. So
Yeah.
I, I've I've often said that there are a few great spiritual lessons that we have to learn. Compassion is one of them, service is one of them, and acceptance is one of them. So those three things that I taught, those are the three big lessons that life is teaching us. And acceptance, it's always there because there's always things we can't control. And compassion is always there because there are always people doing things that disturb us. And service is an opportunity at any moment, to do. So in my life, I have learned that one of the greatest gifts that I have given myself is the gift of acceptance, accepting
Mm.
people, accepting situations. So maybe you can meditate on giving yourself the
Yeah.
gift of acceptance because that's what's in your sanctuary. Acceptance is in your sanctuary. Your
Yeah.
sanctuary is full of all these qualities.
Yeah.
But when we don't go there, or maybe we go there, but we don't see them.
No, that really helps. Yeah.
And
Thank you.
also, I think another obvious thing is it's so obvious it's obvious, but it's hard to see within ourselves. But a situation like this, like with COVID, it's very easy to focus on all the things we don't like because they've all the things we like, so many things have been taken from us, isn't it? We've just been stripped of it. And it's so easy to focus on what we don't like,
Mm.
isn't it?
Mm.
So, you really want to be with her. There's nothing wrong with that. But the fact is you can't. And the more you focus on it, the more it upsets you because
The more it grows. Yeah.
it fosters that I can't control situation,
Yeah.
right?
It grows.
So it makes it
Yeah.
more, it brings it, and as soon as you like, okay, I will now accept that I can't control this. There's nothing I can do. It's beyond my control. And why is that a spiritual lesson? Because existentially, that's our position. We're a small soul. We're not God. We don't control everything. And we are meant to, as spiritual beings, we're meant to realize that we're tiny. And it's a hard lesson to learn because we didn't come into this world because of humility. We came into this world because of ego. And so ego says, I'm in control. So when we're
Mm.
not in control of things, the ego's going, ah, control it. And you can't control it. So your ego's it's driving you crazy because you can't control it. And so the spiritual lesson is, well, actually, I'm not in control. And if I can accept that, then, oh, well, this was a great lesson for me. This could be life-changing. If I
Yeah.
get this is probably the most difficult thing for you to accept. So if you get this,
Yeah.
everything else will be easy, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Martin, that's fantastic. Thank you. That's
Well,
really helped
practice it
so
and see what
much.
happens.
I
Yeah.
will. I'll be practicing like mad.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you. Thank
Just
you.
relax and
I
accept
will.
it
I
because
will. Let it be.
it's already the way it is, so you can't do
Yeah,
anything anyway.
indeed.
And
Yeah.
so then I think the other thing for you is managing your emotions. Now you have this emotion, so how can I manage this emotion in a way that it's helpful rather than harmful?
Yeah.
And I think that this is another big lesson we all have to deal with is that we often manage our lives in ways that are actually work against us. You know? So how can I manage this in a way that'll support me emotionally?
Yeah.
So that's super important because, you know, if we want to succeed in any aspect of life, whether it's an internal thing or it's a job or it's a goal, a lot of times we're not in our sanctuary. We're somewhere else, and our consciousness does not support what we want to do, and that's why we fail. It's not because we don't have the ability. We don't have the consciousness that we're thinking, oh, I'll never succeed. This won't work. Everything always goes wrong. You know, whatever we're thinking. I don't know enough. I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. Um, I'm too young. I'm too old. I'm too British. If I were just American, then I could do it. So, and so to be aware that we need to control those things emotionally to align with what it is we want to achieve. So right now you want to achieve acceptance. So you got to get your emotions in line.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, to be a great exercise for you. There's so much you can learn from this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to, yeah, you made me hopeful. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
it will be for sure. Okay.
Cheers. Oh,
Thank
thanks
you,
for that.
Ashley. Thank you so much
Thanks.
for your
You're welcome.
question. So we have a few questions on the chat.
Okay.
And one of the questions is, what are the different ways that we can develop and practice compassion?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's understand a few things about why we don't have compassion. And have you ever been late to catch a flight? Raise your hand if you've been late to catch a flight. Like, I mean, you know, cutting it close, right? And so you're running, you know, and you're like, can I go in front of the line? I'm late. And you get to security and like, excuse me, sir. I'm like, can I go in front? Right? What are you thinking about? You are meditating on the gate and the clock. Those are only two things on your mind, isn't it? What time is it? And where's the gate? And how long is it going to take me to get there? And can I get through security first? Will somebody be polite and let me go? That's all you're thinking about. I've been there. I travel extensively, so I know what it's like, right? So after one of those experiences, I asked myself, do you think there were other people late also? And I told myself, yes. I said, were you thinking about them? I told myself, no. Why not? Because I'm only concerned with numero uno. I'm concerned with myself. And so when we start to look at ourselves, we realize how self-absorbed we are, right? So compassion cannot exist in the heart if we remain self-absorbed. And self-absorption is the enemy of spiritual progress. And because compassion is the goal, it's the friend or one of the goals. So it's first we have to recognize that we have been so conditioned in this culture, like I said, get more, you'll be happy. So we're always thinking about, well, what's going to make me happy? I have to get this, get ahead, do this and that. So, and we're being pushed. Look at all the ads. What do the ads say? If you get this product, you'll be happy. It says it indirectly, or you'll enjoy, right? It's there in the fine print or the nuance, isn't it? If you get this cream, it'll make your skin lighter. Well, what happens if your skin becomes lighter? You'll be more beautiful. What happens if you're more beautiful? People will like you more. What happens if people like you more? You will be happier. So it's like, okay, I'm getting the skin cream. It'll make my skin lighter. Well, or if you're in America, I'll get the skin cream. That'll make my skin darker. You know, it depends where you're coming from, right? White bodies want to be darker, dark bodies want to be lighter. Yeah. So if we are too self-absorbed, it's difficult to be absorbed in other people. So here's a beautiful meditation I want you to think of. You know what it's like to be in anxiety. Why do you know? Because you have a body, right? You know what anxiety is like. You've been there. You know what stress is like. You've been there. You know what it's like when you desperately have to go to the toilet and there is no toilet. Have you ever been in a situation like that? You know what it's like. You know what it's like to be extremely tired and you're flying somewhere and you can't sleep. You know what it's like to be extremely hungry and you come home and there's absolutely nothing in the refrigerator and you have to go out and shop and cook. You know what life is like because you have a body. You're in a body. You know those anxieties. Compassion means to understand that everybody is going through the same stuff you're going through. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says you understand others' suffering by understanding your own suffering. So there's a beautiful meditation, and you can do this tomorrow or tonight. Just do this on a stranger. If you're out and you see a stranger, you can even do it on a picture. And just say to yourself, just like me, this person is in anxiety. You just meditate on that. Just like me, this person is trying to be happy. Just like me, this person is dealing with life. And just like me, this person is working on himself. Or any way you want to relate to that person. And if you do that exercise, just like me, this person is suffering, just like he's in stress, just like me, he's experienced sorrow and pain, just like me, he's had to go to the toilet and there is no toilet. You know, whatever you want to say. You know, I think half the married couples get divorced. So that means look at two people and you'll know one of them has experienced the pain of divorce. You know, it's just, we've all experienced horrible things. So we actually do this exercise in a workshop, and you know what happens after we do it? Everybody feels more compassionate after doing this. So that compassion is there, and that's how you access it. Don't just always think about yourself, but think, well, are there other people late? Could I help them? Are there other people hungry? Can I help them? Are there other people, and what could I do? So the compassion is there, but it requires a reframing of consciousness. And what I would say is that when you experience service to another person, like I said, you will you'll have an experience that you cannot have by doing anything else. That compassion will be kind of like your drug of choice. It will be who you become. And it will make you so much better as a person. And it will make the world so much better. And the last thing I want to ask you a question is, this is a heavy question to ask. If everyone in the world was as compassionate as you, would the world be better or would it be worse? And you can take any quality and ask yourself that question. If everyone in the world were as forgiving as I, would it be better or worse? If everyone were as tolerant as I? It's a heavy question, I know. But I think it's an important question to ask. Isn't it? So you are compassionate by nature, and these things we're talking about can reframe your consciousness to access that compassion. Now we could take it even further and say, as a human being, you are meant to be compassionate. That's the human quality. That's the divine quality. That's who you are. Is that okay? I forgot who asked the question. Oh, it was in the chat, right? Okay.
It was Anjani that asked the question. But
Okay.
she sent
Is it okay, Anjani? Is that good? Okay. I mean, you know, I could give a whole seminar on compassion. That was in a... but we have to... it's like when I was saying, somebody hurts you and you have resentment, if you could understand all the suffering they have gone through in their life, it will neutralize your hatred for them, because then you're being like kicking a person who's already down. People have suffered. So that person who hurt you has suffered tremendously. You don't need to give them any more suffering. They've had enough, and they will get more according to their karma. So thinking that way, thinking about all the suffering people have gone through, it makes you very compassionate. But if you're only thinking about yourself and what you want, then you can't develop that. Okay. More questions?
Yeah, we have a few more. So one other question is, I'm going to combine the two together. One was from Claire, and she was asking if there's any tips on how to practice acceptance, apart from just understanding that we need to accept the situation. And then also another question from Ranga was, acceptance is something hard when we see others receiving easily what we earnestly feel we need to be peaceful, balanced physically and physiologically. How do we deal with that? How do we deal with the anxiety that arises when we're not receiving something that feels fundamental or vital to us, like a job or a partner or something?
Yeah. I guess they're really two separate questions, I think. Claire, I can give you my personal realization about acceptance. It was the realization I had once from listening to a lecture, and where the person said, the universe is conspiring to make something happen in a particular way. And it's not the way you want it to happen. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And so it's kind of like that inner hell. Now I'm approaching this in a way that's totally going to destroy me because I can't accept it. And I think we may have talked about this a little bit in the last class, the last workshop. We talked about envy. And envy is a big thing because envy comes from not being able to accept the happiness or success of another person, which may slightly answer the second question. Have you ever been envious of somebody? Obviously we have. Why? Because they have achieved something that you want, or they have a better body than you have, or they have blue eyes and you have brown eyes. It could be a little thing, right? Or you want to be Indian and you're not, or you don't want to be Indian and you are. And they're, everybody hates that straight A student, right? Isn't it? That Chinese girl in the class that understands everything, and she doesn't even have to study. Everybody hates her, right? Yes? So if you could just say, great, I'm happy she's smart. I'm happy for her. If you can say that, there's acceptance. There's no more envy. Isn't that the sanctuary view of it? Like, I'm happy for you. You succeeded. You're more beautiful than I am. I'm happy for you. Right? Why? Because if I were her, I would want you to be. If you were her, you would want you to be happy for you. Right? Isn't it? So sometimes you kind of have to take yourself out of these bodies and ask yourself, well, if I were her, what would I want for me? I certainly wouldn't want to be pulled down or envy or so forth. It's compassion. And I'm not sure exactly what the acceptance is that you're looking for. It could be self-acceptance, acceptance of another person. But I think jealousy is and envy is such a common thing that if we could make ourselves happy at the success of another person, that would transform our life. Because a lot of times with envy, we're thinking, well, if I had what they had, I would be happy. It's not true. If you're not happy now, you won't be happy when you get them. Because as the saying goes, wherever you go, your mind goes with you. And when you become famous, your mind, that crazy mind, is going to tell you, yeah, you're famous, but you're not famous enough. Yeah, you're rich, but not as rich as, Bill Gates or something. So I think it's important to recognize that, because we're envious. We think, I would be happy if I had that. It's false. It's not true. If you're not happy now, you won't be happy then. Unless you're living on the street. Yeah, okay. If you have a house, you'll be happy. If you have food, you'll be happy. But if you have all those things, you don't need what they need to be happy. So sometimes when you're looking for more acceptance, you have to do this analysis. You have to really analyze the situation. And then, as I said before, put yourself in a different role and really look and say, what am I thinking? Where is it coming? Where's the compassion in that thinking? And what is it doing to me? It's actually driving me crazy. And I could even get a little scarier because if this gets bad, it's actually causing us cancer. If our stress, anxiety, envy levels are high, it's actually going to cause us cancer because it's going to wear us down because it's something we can't accept. And if we can't accept something, it could destroy us physically, isn't it? So I have found if there's anything in the world that makes me peaceful more than anything, it's acceptance. Because once I accept, there's nothing to upset me anymore. Isn't that amazing? If I can learn to accept everything, then there's nothing to upset me. Is that okay? Did that keep you awake? It's past your bedtime.
It is, it did indeed, thank you. Yes, just to build on that, actually, if that's okay, because I think my rational brain can kind of completely understand that, and I can be like, oh well, obviously, it's much better just to accept it and be really happy in this situation as much as you can. But I think I don't necessarily feel that, like it's kind of a rational thing versus a kind of in my body thing.
Yeah. Okay. So then, I'm glad you asked that question because this is really important. So I'll kind of make a question out of that. What do you do if you understand something but you don't feel it? And the answer is simple. You do it. And by doing it, you'll feel it. Then here's a little mantra for you. It's really powerful. It's easier to act your way into a new behavior than to feel your way. It's easier to think your way into a new action than to feel your. It's easier to think your way.
Act your way into new thinking.
Than to think your way into a new action. It's easier to act your way into a new feeling than to feel your way into a new action. Because a lot of times we're waiting to feel it before we act. But just psychologically speaking, action creates beliefs. It creates, like if you say, I don't want to do this. I go, just do it. I don't want to do it. Have you ever done that and someone drags you out and you do it and you say, I'm so happy that you brought me here. I feel so good because you did it. You have the experience. But intellectually, it's like, this is out of my comfort zone, and I don't need to do this. So I think one of the greatest things we can do to change beliefs and experiences is actually do it. Do what we're, say, okay, pick somebody that you're envious of and say, I'm going to become a supporter of them. I'm going to be like really happy and see what that does to you. And you'll see it starts to dissolve that envy and you'll think, wow, this is amazing. That's another tool in my inner sanctuary I can use when I feel envious. I can just support people. I can be happy. You say, but I'm not happy. Well, just fake it. Just do it. Do something, just fake it. Just think it's good that he's successful. I'm happy for them. He's a nice person. He's not a bad person. I can be happy. And you do it. And then you know what happens? You become happy. When you're self-accepting, when you burn out that envy, you become happy. And then, Claire, always remember, you're not going to be any happier when you're in their position. If you're not happy now, it's not going to happen then. And, you can be happy that they're there. And then you realize, I can be happy right here. I don't need to be there to be happy. I can be happy there. So that whole combination supports that effort. You all can be happy where you are right now. You don't need anything because you as a spiritual being already are happy and you can access that. And if you think no, that's when your anxiety begins. And you'll spend your whole life looking for it, or many lives looking for it, which we've already done for many lives. That's the problem. Okay, so the other question was, if you could give me the other question again and see if it any way relates to this.
Acceptance is sometimes hard when we see others receiving easily what we earnestly feel we need to be peaceful, balanced, physically and psychologically. How do we deal with that? How do you deal with the anxiety that arises when we're not receiving something that feels fundamental or vital? For example, a job or a partner.
Yeah. I think we have to go into karma in that. I wouldn't call that self-acceptance. I think it's more of well, you could call it self-acceptance. You're self-accepting your circumstances, which you believe are unfair. In it, if we understand karma deeply, not just on a philosophical level, but on a very practical level, then we understand that ultimately whatever comes to me, I've created. And it may not seem like I've created because it's from a past life, but this is my karma right now. And my spiritual challenge is to be able to deal with that, accept it without becoming depressed or discouraged. And one of the things that I've experienced, Ranga, is that no matter what happens, I always have shelter in my spiritual practice. And that's like the ultimate sanctuary is your spiritual practice. Because I had this experience, this heavy experience once. I was going through hell. You know, someone had left me. Someone very important had left me, and I was going through hell. It was really, really difficult. But I would go to classes and I would chant. And during that period, I didn't experience any of those problems. It's just when I stopped, that's when I experienced they all. So I had actually, had been in my sanctuary and then I had left it. And so what I've found is that if you can find deeper satisfaction in the things you can control, like your spiritual practice, or the things you like to do. From that picture, it looks like you like to dance. Is that true? And the things that give you satisfaction, then just say, I will control what I can control. I will accept what I can't control and be happy with that. Then by doing more of what you can do and relishing that, go more deeply into your chanting and your study and prayer and service, then that's how you'll balance it. And then just accept it. Karmically, this is what's coming. Because whether it's fair or not is a judgment. So, it's the judgment that's causing you the problem. If you accept, okay, fair, not fair, I don't look at it that way. This is what's coming karmically. And your karma can change at any moment. Have you ever been I've been in situations where someone's complaining, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. They're ready to just give up on everything. And the next day, that thing they wanted happens. And they're so embarrassed because they're saying, why is God treating me like this? I'm finished with spirituality. And the next day it all comes. And they have their tail between their legs. They go, I was so stupid. So, you don't know what will happen tomorrow. And you don't know what will happen tomorrow with the other person that has everything today. But whatever happens, it's okay because that's what's supposed to happen. And, the other thing is maybe your spiritual life wouldn't be as great if you had all these things. Or maybe there's a lesson you need to learn. Maybe it's tolerance. Maybe it's something that you're supposed to learn now. You like to dance, Ranga? You look like you like to dance. Is it true? Yeah, you should dance. The answer to Ranga's question is she needs to dance more. And be happy that you can dance. You know that story? This guy had no shoes, but he was okay. And they're like, why are you okay? He said, well, the guy next door has no feet. So at least I have feet, So, it's like, you set a certain standard, I have to have this, but, maybe you don't. That's another thing we teach in the course about, standards you set for yourself. Some people set standards for themselves. I need A, B, and C to be happy. But they can't get A, B, and C. No, I need D, E, and F to be happy, but all they can get is A, B, and C. So they get A, B, and C, they don't get D, E, and F, and they're not happy. And who set the standard? They did. What do you need to be happy, Ranga? Chant Hare Krishna, a little prasadam, and dance. If that's your standard, you'll be okay. You'll be happy. That's all I need to be happy. Prasadam is spiritual food, for those who don't know. Yeah, so then I'm happy. I have my beads here. What do you need to be happy? Is all I need is this. And I'm happy, And it's nice if I can teach, that makes me happy. Play my keyboard a little bit, that makes me happy, that's I'm fine. That's it. So you maybe have to reset your standards a bit of what you define as happiness. But if you define what other people have as happiness and you don't have it, that's a recipe for your inner hell. And you'll live in your inner hell and you'll drive yourself crazy. Who drives us crazy more than anyone? We do. Isn't it? You agree? Okay. You can write me if you want to talk more about it or send me a message. Okay.
Well, Ranga also had another really good question that kind of sums up my question as well. So
okay, let's hear.
If we can ask one last one. Often we're bad at applying compassion, acceptance, and service to ourselves, but good at offering that to others.
Yes.
Or we're bad at offering it to ourselves and to others. How can we get better at offering that to ourselves?
Start with yourself. Ultimately, you can't perfect your compassion to others unless you perfect it towards yourself. Because at some point, you'll become intolerant of what another person does because you're intolerant of your own self. And until you're tolerating yourself, you're good. So, you're a compassionate person, so you can do it. But other aspects that you're not giving yourself will come up. And so it's always the motto is, first to myself, then I can give to others. So if you understand that, that's where it begins. I want to be compassionate to others. I can just tell you from my personal experience, in dealing with other people who I was trying to help become spiritually evolved, a lot of times, years ago, this was like, let's say 40 years ago, 30 years ago, I would become intolerant. Like, why are you not progressing spiritually? And forget you. I don't want to deal with you. That's because that's how I treated myself. I was intolerant. I was not self-accepting, and so I couldn't accept them. And then at a certain point in my life, I became extremely self-accepting in a really healthy way, that it helped me. It didn't minimize my enthusiasm for my spiritual life. It just allowed me to accept myself as I am. And I became so accepting of other people that no matter what they did, it didn't bother me anymore. So I really think, I always say all criticism is autobiographical. We're just, you always do that. No, just change the word to I always do that, because that's what it is. So I think that's, you're probably a compassionate person, so it may not be so clear to you, but ultimately it has to start with you, everything. If you want to be accepting of people, you have to be self-accepting. You want to be tolerant, you have to be tolerant with yourself. You have to be kind to yourself to really be kind to others. And if you've studied the topic of criticism purely from a psychological perspective, every psychologist will say it's the unhealed within you that finds fault in the other person. So any of you who have a tendency to find fault, you're really finding fault with yourself. And so and when you heal and accept what's in you, you stop finding fault with other people. There's no need, because it doesn't bother you anymore that they have a problem that you have, because you've made peace with it and you're dealing with it. Oh, we have another one. It's getting interesting, this discussion. Some people will say that acceptance will be a way of conformism. I don't see any bad on conformism, as the word means, the tendency to adapt ourselves. But I hear many times that conformism is not leading to a better future. It depends what you're conforming to. Better ways are in different ways, objects that make our lives easier. What's your thoughts? The basic principle in spiritual practice is not whether conforming is good or bad, or this is good or bad, or in and of itself, but how it helps you progress spiritually. So that's the question you want to ask. If conforming to this is helpful, if doing this is helpful, or is it harmful? Because in and of itself, it may be good, but it may be bad for you, right? Maybe it's better not to conform because what you were conforming to would be unhealthy for you. Or maybe it's good to conform because what you conform to would be healthy. So that's the question you have to ask. Is this actually helping me progress? spiritually? That's always the question in any decision you make. Is this going to help me spiritually? Is that what you were asking, or did I miss the question?
Sorry, yeah. I was pointing more to the people who are not really much into spirituality, and they just see acceptance as something that they don't want to agree with. So
Okay.
let's say, yeah.
They want to be
probably.
individual. They want to be individuals and nonconformists. Yeah. I would still say it's the same answer. You know, maybe being an individual is good in general, but if you're not conforming to, everyone's going the right direction, so I'm going to go the other direction, and then you end up drowning. So what's the point? Well, at least I wasn't a conformist, even though I died. That's stupid. So it's not about conforming, not conforming, as much as it's about what is the best for my spiritual life. So it's the same answer. Something in and of itself is not always necessarily good or bad. You have to see the context and the application. Then you can determine whether it's good or bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So we promised to have kirtan.
Yes.
It's going to be a late night kirtan, I guess. You wanted to make an announcement, Ananda, about other programs, and then we'll have a little kirtan, and you can stay for the kirtan, or you can go to sleep, or whatever you want to do, or sleep during the kirtan. We'll leave it up to you.
Yes, I'll share my screen for just a second. Thank you so much. That was an incredible, insightful talk. Do you guys agree? Was that useful, helpful in life? Yes. I think it was great. Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen. Thank you so much, Mahatma Prabhu, Martin. We're not used to calling Mahatma Prabhu Martin. Mahatma Prabhu is a much more respectful way of addressing someone senior to us. Senior in knowledge, by the way, not in age. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? Great. So we are, as we're coming to a close with our program, we just wanted to quickly announce that we do weekly kirtans on every Friday on Zoom, and this Friday we have Abhishek at 7 o'clock, and next Friday I'll be singing with a few friends. So if you would like to come for it's going to be an hour kirtan, and half an hour we have a breakout room to kind of just share and churn and get and mingle and meet each other. So linktree /Kirtan London is where you can book tickets. It's free, so please come. And then this is the link to forgiveness course. I'll drop an email with these links as well. Mahatma Prabhu's forgiveness course, and we have a discount code here, Kirtan 108, so you can get a little discount. And if you're not signed up to our newsletter, we constantly update constantly add some events and host some talks like this and kirtans, and right now we're going through a mantra challenge and things like that, so that sometimes comes spontaneously. It is good to be signed up to our newsletter. We send one newsletter a month. You do that at kirtanlondon.com. And you can follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. And thank you so much. And we're ready for some kirtan.
And as we said before, if you're not able to stay, that's fine. I don't want to keep you up. We went longer, but if you'd like to stay, that would be fantastic. And chant your heart out. And I woke up with a sore throat, so if I croak a little like a frog, please forgive me. I will do my best. Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sanyavari Paschachya Satarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time, everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you for staying, for listening. I had a very nice time with all of you. And hopefully we can develop the full course maybe by April. And we can have 6 or 8 weeks together once a week. That would be fantastic. And take this further. This is just the beginning. So,
thank you all so much. This was an amazing, life-changing evening, and we hope to see you. We hope to see you soon. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you. If you have any further questions, please email us. We can continue the conversation.
yeah, if you have questions, send the email, and then they'll send it to me, and then I can respond.
Yeah. Thank you all. Bye. Good night.
Apply what you learned tomorrow.
Yes.
Take it out into the world. Before the world takes you on, take the world on.